Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Tomorrow is momentous day because it's the day that Amy Jacobson was brought into this world. But
No, it's Veterans Day.
it is also Veterans Day. And we're pleased to be joined by Walt Larimore, who's a internationally recognized family physician. He's an award-winning medical journalist. And he's also the best-selling author of a new book, At First Light, The True World War II Story of a Hero, His Bravery, and an Amazing Horse. Sounds like it has Hollywood potential. And spoiler alert, it's about his dad. Walt Larimore, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's an honor to be with you guys. Happy Veterans Day to all those that are listening that have served. Those of us like me that haven't served, don't say thank you enough to these wonderful men and women, do we?
Absolutely. So tell us about your dad and sort of the process. This is always interesting too. I've read excerpts. The process by which you came to understand your dad's service to our country, because oftentimes those who serve, they come back, they don't want to discuss what they saw, they don't want to discuss what happened because war is so brutal. And so that process with you and your dad and your family.
Yeah, Dan, my brothers and I grew up with a dad. We knew that he had fought in the war. We knew he lost his leg in the war. We knew he must have been a hero because in his office he had a shadow box of every Medal of Valor that the Army gives out except the Medal of Honor. And he had all these signed autographed pictures from famous generals, including General Eisenhower and General Young and General Ridgway. But he wouldn't talk about it until his and Mom's 50th wedding anniversary. We were all sitting around, and one of my brothers said, "Well, Dad, how did you really lose your leg?" Because he would say things like, "Well, I was swimming and a shark bit it off," or
wow.
I was cleaning a pistol and a fly landed on my knee, and I'm a marksman, so I went to shoot it and I missed and shot my knee. But anyway, that night he opened up and he started telling story after story after story, and it was like Forrest Gump, Dan and Amy. It was just really unbelievable stories, but at least he was a consistent liar because the stories were always the same. To his boys, to his Boy Scouts. He was a beloved professor at LSU. He called it Harvard on the Bayou. And but then when he passed away in 2003, in the attic, I found his footlocker. It had about 450 letters that he had written home that documented these stories. And then he had 3 history books that documented the stories. And I still didn't believe them, so I spent about 15 years researching at Army installations, museums, and archives his stories. And sure enough, it's true. The youngest ever graduate from officer candidate school at 17, the youngest officer in World War II, one of the most highly decorated officers in World War II, who fought on the Forgotten Front. Everyone's heard of D-Day, right? But no one knows that the Southern Front had 5 D-Days. Wow. And the Northern guys, they fought 336 hellacious days across Northern Europe. But the Southern guys fought 912 days. And they had a Battle of the Bulge that was even worse than the Battle of the Bulge. And so it's not just about this teenage juvenile delinquent that became a national hero. It's not just about the horse that saved his life, but it's about that forgotten Southern Front, that the suffering and sacrifices that they made, the successes they had to give us the liberty and freedom we enjoy today.
Well, we want to get to your horse in a second, but how did your father lose his leg? Or do we have to read the book?
It was the very last month of the war. On April 5th was the day that he had his secret mission to save the Lipizans. But 3 days later, on April 8th, they were fighting through Germany. He was the youngest company commander in World War II, so he was leading a company, and a squad of his, Amy, got surrounded by about 130 German fighters, the fanatical fighters. He jumped on the back of a tank, according to eyewitness accounts, and with that Sherman tank in to save his guys, firing a 50-millimeter machine gun. The eyewitnesses said that he wiped out 3 machine gun nests, single-handedly killed over 100 Germans while saving his guys. But he ran out of ammunition, and at that moment was going to jump off the tank when a sniper bullet hit his helmet, grazed off his helmet, knocked him off the tank. He was walking back to the woods with his guys, shooting his rifle, when a sniper shot his leg. The eyewitness said that the wound was as big as a silver dollar. He went down. The tank commander thought for sure he was dead. and went ahead and went back into the woods. That evening, Amy, when they went to recover his body, they found that he was still alive. He had put a tourniquet on, lapsed in and out of consciousness, but was still alive. And when they evacuated him to the field hospital, he didn't lose his life, but he lost his leg. But that officer that rescued him, the German officer that came out to surrender with 30 remaining men, said this, Amy. He said, "We would have wiped out your unit had not the man on the tank that bullets couldn't stop appeared." And I think I got that eyewitness account since the book was published. I think I would rename the book "At First Light: The Man That Bullets Couldn't Stop."
Oh,
Well, and
sounds like a wonderful man.
and he was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, 2 Bronze Stars. So I mean, this is all documented by armed forces as well. What you're describing. You mentioned the Lipizans. That's a horse for those who don't know. So tell us about Chug.
Well, everyone knows about those white dancing horses in Vienna, Austria, those royal Lipizans. But Hitler wanted those Lipizans to be the perfect horse for the perfect race, for that Aryan race that he, in his evil, imagined. And so he had sequestered all of the world's population of Lipizans in Czechoslovakia. At the end of the war, the Russian army, because of the Yalta Agreement, was given the responsibility of liberating Czechoslovakia. And they were moving from eastern Czechoslovakia across Czechoslovakia. But because the Russian army was starving, they were killing and cooking and eating everything in their path. And they came across a trailer containing 22 Lipizan stallions. They killed 21 of them and made Lipizan stew. And so the veterinarians at the horse farm in western Czechoslovakia that had the rest of the world's populations of Lipizans became panicked because they knew the Lipizans were going to be wiped out, along with several other royal breeds, Frisians, Bourbons, Andalusians, quarter horses, and so forth. So they sent a message out to the U.S. Army, said, "Please come save these horses." The Army had no idea they were there, so they needed to send someone in. My dad was an equestrian, his commander was equestrian, and their general, General Patton, was an equestrian. So they asked him to volunteer to fly into Czechoslovakia on a Piper Cub, which he did. He couldn't know the pilot's name. The pilot could not know his name. No dog tags, no identification. If they had been captured or killed, they would have been disavowed and considered AWOL. And he flew in, met a Nazi vet. A Nazi vet was riding on a Lipizan and brought a thoroughbred named Chug, and because he had no idea if the Army guy could ride or not. But Dad got on Chug. They rode to the farm, identified the horses, and the fact that there were British and American POWs there. The Army didn't know that. So they ended up riding back to the plane. Dad and the pilot flew out, got the message to General Patton that the Lipizans were there, and General Patton created what was called Operation Cowboy, sent in a cavalry unit, literally a cavalry unit, to walk those Lipizans out of Czechoslovakia and saved the breed.
Wow, that is a great story. I hope Steven Spielberg is listening. I mean, he made
too.
War Horse about World War I. This sounds like right in his wheelhouse for a World War II story. Yeah, that's incredible. And so the the other things that you sort of process when you're going through your dad's story, all this information you found in his footlocker. Did you have the occasion to talk to anybody that served with him to provide more context in terms of that time in his service?
I did. The stories were so unbelievable that I contacted. First of all, I found records of the men he fought with, both those he served under and those he served over. I was able to find 3 of them that were still alive and interview them. 2 of them talked about how he had saved their lives. One was a machine gunner who was, they were fighting in the Colmar pocket. It was kind of the Battle of the Bulge on the south. And they got caught in a vicious attack and were crossing a stream, and the machine gunner was carrying a 75-pound machine gun on his shoulder. And when they crossed the stream, the machine gunner slipped. His name was Ed Drabchak, and he went under. But he had been trained, you never, ever, ever let that gun go. And so he was drowning with that gun on his shoulder. And he told me, he said, I felt somebody grabbed that machine gun, a 75-pound machine gun, off my shoulder, and then grabbed me and pulled me out of that little river and saved my life. He said, "That was your dad, 138 pounds of him."
Wow.
But I was able to talk to guys he fought with. I was able to talk with the children of guys he fought with, because for this type of book, I had to invent some of the conversations. So I wanted to be sure that the family members saw what I was writing about their dad, to be sure that it was accurate. And I think the way that was written is why reviewers have compared it to Laura Hillebrand's Unbroken, or Ben Ambrose's Band of Brothers, or even Warhorse that you mentioned. And I'm grateful for that. But I'm more grateful that we'll be able to remember and celebrate that forgotten Southern Front and all of the 16 million Americans who fought in World War II.
Walt Larimore, internationally recognized family physician, award-winning medical journalist, and a best-selling author. You can tell how good a storyteller he is. Pick it up, At First Light, a true World War II story of a hero, his bravery, and an amazing horse. Walt, thanks so much for joining us, and best of luck with the book. Appreciate it.
Hey, great to be with you guys. And by the way, Amazon for Veterans Day has put it on sale, the hardcover, 40% off. It's a great deal.
Very good.
Good. All right. Thank you so much. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank, a bank where relationships still matter. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hey all, Jim Carr here. I am the owner of Car Machine and Tool in Elk Grove Village and loyal customer of Signature Bank. As a second generation